meeting of the Site Plan Review Technical Advisory Committee to order. Note that we have a quorum, and welcome Mike Maloney from the Police Department. Glad to have a representative again, so welcome. Nick will join us. I think he went to get his iPad. First, I want to just acknowledge that we have two postponements. 375 Banfield Road will be postponed again, as well as 212 Woodbury Avenue. So item A under old business and item D and E under old business. Which brings us to items B and C under old business. The request of Port Harbor. Oh wait, first let's approve the minutes. Thank you, Steph. From October 4th. Are there any changes, or is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from October 4th.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, so on to item B and C, the request of Port Harbor Land LLC for property located at 2 Russell, requesting lot line revision approval to adjust the boundary lines on 3 lots to create 1 lot with 18,237 square feet of lot area, 1 lot with 52,651 square feet of lot area, and 1 lot with 19,141 square feet of lot area. Said property is located on Assessor Map 118, Lot 28, Map 124, Lot 12, and Map 125, Lot 21, and lie within the Character District 5, North End Incentive Overlay District, Historic District, and Downtown Overlay District. In item C, the request of Port Harbor Land LLC, owner and applicant for property located at 2 Russell, requesting site plan approval for the construction of 84 residential units, commercial space, and parking in 3 buildings with associated community space, paving, utilities, landscaping, and other site improvements, including 3 proposed land transfers to allow for the realignment of Russell Street and Deer Street intersection, and for the city's future construction of a roundabout at Russell Street and Market Street. Land transfer Area 1 is proposed from Map 119, Lot 4 to the City of Portsmouth. Land transfer areas 2 and 3 are from Map 119, Lot 1-1C to the City of Portsmouth. Conditional use permit approval to provide 334 parking spaces on separate lots where 341 spaces are required as permitted under Section 10.1112.62 of the zoning ordinance. And conditional use permit approval to allow 40,000 square foot building footprint within CD5 as permitted under 10.5A43.43 of the zoning ordinance. Said properties are located on Assessor Map 118, Lot 28, Map 124, Lot 12, Map 125, Lot 21, Map 119, Lot 4, and Map 119, Lot 1-1C, and lie within the Character District 5, North End Incentive Overlay District, Historic District, and Downtown Overlay District. Welcome again.
Thank you, Peter. Neil Hansen with Pine Bond. Up here is Patrick Herman from Pine Bond and Ryan Plummer from 2 International. So we got another round of comments from you folks, so we thank you for sending those yesterday. And I guess we'll start going through responses to those. So first comment is staff is to review third-party stormwater and traffic reviews when available. So we did get the TEC review letter last night and the CMA review letter earlier today. I do want to go through those a little bit, but I'll go through the staff comments first and then get back to those peer review responses. 2, speed bump should be a hump. Please include detail. We can make that revision. Eric, I'm guessing this was yours. Do you have any specific dimensions of height, length that you're looking for? Or?
No, but I think if you have access to IT, they have design standards for that.
Okay,
Yeah.
just follow that. Got it. So 3, TAC will need to review the redesign of the building relative to sewer easement prior to recommendation to planning board. So that was the handout that I passed out as Peter was reading the project in. So the image on the left is the building footprint that has been on the plans for the last 3 or 4 meetings. The building on the right is what the revision we're proposing to make, so we'd be basically increasing the radius of that upper left corner to that gray hatched area in order to pull the building out of the city's sewer easement. So I know you're all just seeing this for the first time.
This little corner here.
Correct.
Okay.
So I don't know if there's any initial thoughts on that, or if you need more time to marinate, but that's what we're proposing to do, to pull that building out of the city's easement.
So is it just the first floor there that's changed, or is it?
So it'd be, that portion of the building is 3 stories, so it'd be all 3 stories. And then there is a 4-story, but that's set back further from Maplewood, so that wouldn't be impacted by this. So it's roughly 85 to 90 square feet per
it's the
floor.
easement.
So just under 300 square feet will be pulled out of the total.
You said there's an easement there, a
It's a
city's,
sewer easement, yeah.
all right, yeah. Is the sewer under the building or to the,
It's
close to it?
It's kind of does that. And then the easement
It's
is,
really wide?
I think it's 10 feet or 15 feet off the center line of the sewer. I don't know the exact dimension. It's that upper left corner of the lot is pretty much all in the sewer easement. Comment 4, farthest east parking space on Deer Street next to the fire hydrant should be eliminated. That's fine, we can eliminate that space. Comment 5 is related to that sewer easement. Sewer main located next to foundation of proposed building 1 will need to be moved by developer. So, as I just mentioned, we are proposing to move the building out of that easement. I don't know if the intention of the city is that sewer needs to get moved regardless of the location of the building. See Dave nodding yes.
That is the direction that we have been given.
What's the direction?
That the city still wants that sewer moved, even though we are proposing to pull the building out of the sewer easement.
So if you're moving it within the easement area, or what's the city asking you to do?
To move it into Maplewood, off the property.
So then you wouldn't need to clip the building?
They want to go from there to there, under the railroad, and abandon this piece.
Yeah. So if you did that, you wouldn't need to clip the building, if you did that?
If correct.
Correct. Just trying to keep up.
And the intention of clipping the building was to avoid
Leave it
having
the
to
way
move
it
the
is.
sewer, but it sounds like the city is asking or telling us that we need to move the sewer regardless of what we do with the building.
Is that where we are, Dave?
Yeah, that's where we are. That's crystal clear, yes.
So they can leave the building where it is?
Sure.
But we would have to take the sewer across the railroad?
Yes.
Thoughts, or are we moving on?
Move on, I guess.
Okay. 6, Trees and Greenery Committee will need to approve tree grates, planting details, and planting species. We acknowledge that. Parking and Traffic Safety Committee, then City Council will need to approve on-street parking changes. We acknowledge that as well. Confirm overlay of Deer and Russell Streets as part of work. I'm assuming this is referring to repaving, Dave? Yes? Okay, so yeah, we have shown that on these plans and are planning on doing that as part of this, so.
Okay.
We agree with that. 9, upon further review and consideration, a raised crosswalk is not the preferred solution for Deer Street at Portwalk Place, as is an arterial roadway with considerable truck traffic and a high number of left turns onto Portwalk Place. A high visibility at-grade crosswalk with RRFBs is the preferred alternate. So we're fine making that revision. I just wanted to clarify anything specific we need to do for the high visibility piece of that statement.
That's the piano-style keys, the crosswalk markings, that's referred to as high visibility.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Yep. We are fine making that revision. At all crosswalks, streetlights on either side of crosswalk must be 10 feet from the nearest edge of crosswalk with luminaire centered over travel lane of street. RFB push button must be no more than 5 feet from edge of crosswalk and no more than 10 inches from level landing. These are state DOT standards. We're fine making those revisions. I think we're going to need to shift a couple of them to meet that, but we're fine making those, and we'll make sure we get all those final locations coordinated with DPW. Sharrow marking should be provided every 100 feet. We're fine with that. We can make that revision. Per MUTCD, a one-way sign is required with the do not enter sign at the rear shared roadway at its intersection with Green Street. We will add that to the plan. And the left through pavement arrow on Deer Street at Russell Street is not needed, and we can remove that from the plans as well. So I'm going to go into the peer review comments that we received yesterday and today, just kind of go through those as well. There's a few remaining on the TEC for traffic. First one is that TEC recommends the installation of a MUTCD compliant stop sign at the northerly end of the rear access aisle where it meets Green Street. We are fine adding that to the plans, and we'll do so. The next one is related to the crosswalk at Porwalk Place that I just discussed as staff comment 9, I believe, 9. So there's just some details on the RFBs, arrows, and push buttons. So we'll make sure we get all those signs on the details and called out on the plan set. Next comment, TEC recommends the applicant copy DPW and all related correspondence. This is in regards to the railroad, as infrastructure lies within the city's right-of-way, and we're certainly fine with keeping DPW copied on all that. The next comment is related to the fence along the property line. So it appears that TEC had reviewed a slightly outdated version of our response letter from before we added the fence. So we have added the fence, which was a request a couple meetings ago, I believe, from this group. They just have concerns about snow storage, and we have acknowledged that we will have to haul snow off the site. And obviously, we'll need to take care to not damage the fence while performing snow removal, and if it does get damaged, we'll need to repair it. And then the final comment they had was based on a previous comment about visitor parking and potentially having a gated access to the entrance between buildings 2 and 3, which we had stated we would rather not do. And TEC is recommending adding a no public parking sign at that entrance, and we are fine at making that addition to the plans. So those are the outstanding comments on the traffic peer review. And then for the stormwater, which we received earlier today, there's one outstanding issue, and they've just asked us to provide some supporting documentation on the elevation of the on-site ledge. So we do have boring data and a ledge profile plan that we can provide to CMA to show those elevations. And then additionally, just in general, given the size of the buildings on the site and the area we have remaining, we are not in favor of infiltrating that close to a foundation, just in general, ledge depth aside. So we'll provide all that backup information that we have that we were using to CMA, and hopefully be able to close out this one final comment from them. So that was all I had. If we have anything additional.
Neil, can we go back to the sewer? Is there a reason if we pull that out of the easement, is there something about our project that's requiring that to be brought into Maplewood? Are we increasing the size of that line or anything?
The main impetus of the comment is that this sewer line is very, very important to the city. It drains multiple neighborhoods. And the issue at hand is that if we needed to work on that or something happened to that line, we would be completely blocking your driveway for extended periods of time, possibly. And we really don't want that to be a situation that we have to deal with. That's the issue.
Okay, but we could open up the other side of the driveway temporarily while you worked on it, right? We actually have enough space for two-way traffic, technically, we're just don't.
I don't know. I'm just going with what I was directed to tell you.
All right. Any other comments from other TAC members?
Just about that TEC's note about the correspondence with the railroad.
Yep.
Because we're just concerned that they may look at the plan and say, oh, they want the road farther away from their property. We just want to make sure that we're aware of their concerns going forward.
Yep, understood.
Do we have any kind of, I mean, this just came in today, right? Do we have anything from our legal department that says that we should be acting on this today?
So,
Referring to the parking.
Referring to the, right. The implication is that it doesn't meet the zoning ordinance.
so I reviewed that section of the zoning ordinance, and I'll definitely provide it to legal to review. I mean, up to now, our position has been that, I don't know that we're a party to that easement, the city is. I realized it was required, and the parking spaces are required. The terms of that, I don't know, and so at this point, we're looking to ensure that those parking spaces are provided for, and the new additional parking spaces are provided for the entire site. But I will refer this to legal and see if there is a clear conflict with the code. I read that section of code. I can see how it was interpreted as it has been, but I would say at this point, we're going to proceed with the review until I'm directed otherwise by legal.
Neil, the lot that's on the other side of Green Street, just without me trying to go through all these plans, do we have whatever we needed to put a temporary access road through there for building the roundabout?
Yeah,
Is that included in this plan submission?
I believe we added a note about making sure that we had, or that the park was not built until after the roundabout. So there's some, we had added some note relating to that at some point along the way. I don't know offhand where we put it on the plans.
I think it's note 19 on the G100.
Yes, you're right. Construction sequence of North Community Park shall be coordinated with Market Street and Russell Street intersection construction. North Community Park shall not be constructed until the intersection roundabout has been constructed.
Okay, so what that doesn't say is that the city can use the parcel as an access road during construction.
There is a lot line adjustment to that. There's a portion that would be added to the city right away as part of this,
I understand that. Yeah.
which the city would then be able to use.
I don't think that's wide enough.
Yeah, I mean, we can just add a.
It's hard to see what's going on because I can't see where that tower is on this plan.
Yeah, we can just add a construction access easement to one of our easement plans for the entire parcel.
Okay?
Because there's already gonna be a community space easement there when it's
Okay.
done, so we can just add a temporary construction access easement on top of that.
So, and Eric, we're not asking for video detection on this because
They have a note on the plan saying they will do it.
They will, okay. And how much are they? Is it on that G100 too?
No, it's a note on the site plan.
It's general note 15 on G100.
General Road 50.
Contractor shall install intersection video detection for Maplewood Avenue and Deer Street intersection. Coordinate with the City of Portsmouth Traffic Department.
Okay.
Any other comments before we open up for public comment? All right, seeing none. Anyone from the public here like to speak to this? No one on Zoom. So we'll close the public comment portion. Open up for further discussion.
Drainage been reviewed.
Yes.
Is there anything else outstanding we're waiting on?
So there's several revisions, it seems like, that are in order. I think we could go through those and see how you feel once we get through that list. The sewer main needs to be located next to the foundation of Building 1. That is a revision, and there might be an additional, sounds like there might be a building footprint revision associated with that, or you're not certain yet?
If we have to move the sewer, we'd leave the building as it is.
Okay, so there's a revision there, for sure, for the sewer. The raised crosswalk, is that a revision that's going to be in order at this point, now that that's been
Yes.
changed, that consideration's been changed? Revision there. There's the final locations for the streetlights, it sounds like. Do those need to be
Yeah.
finalized and reviewed by DPW? Sharrow markings every 100 feet, there's some revisions there, I think. I'm looking, one-way sign, but that is another addition. These are just small, I think, notes and additions to the plans. Now, I tried to take notes on the third-party review. I didn't see added construction access easement. I think that was a revision. So I think those are the big ones. The other ones are mostly notes, I think. Gated access between the buildings, I think that might be a note as well. So those are the revisions, I think, that are on the table. Do we have a full easement plan in here? I need to.
I think there's 4
There are
easement
several,
plans.
Okay, thank
There are
you.
a couple
What is the
different
requirement for
plans that
CMMP to
would
get added?
be an
Is that a
addition
planning
of
board
that
level, or is that
extra
on a note
easement
on-
across the
It's here now.
Here now?
Parcel?
Yeah, that would be added to that access easement plan.
Okay, thank you. So. Would you like to see this again?
Not really.
I might want to just see it again, just so that we can confirm our position regarding the parking as you move forward with legal and have them review. I mean, I think that I haven't conferred with staff about the question about the stacked parking and how that complies with that provision that's raised in the letter. but definitely would like to,
In regards to the parking, can we have, I'd like to have our attorney, John Lyons, address that if it'll help.
Hello, everybody. I have a letter coming to the city in response to the letter that I think you have from Attorney Gormley, but let me confirm that the plans that have been submitted specifically provide for the 58 easement parking spaces. My clients are going to honor those 58 spaces. They will not be stacked spaces. They will not be stacked spaces.
okay.
And one other clarification I do want to add to that, just as it relates to zoning, is that the systems we're proposing are the puzzle systems and not the stack systems, which plays into that tandem parking provision and makes it so that we don't have to actually physically move cars to.
That was my impression when I read that. That
Yeah.
it was
I
contemplating a
think-
different type of parking system.
Right, and I think the way that other letter was worded implied that we were using a different system than we're proposing, so.
So it sounded like the little bit I got out of the letter was that they were worried about stack parking. Is it going to be a puzzle system, or are these going to be free and clear spaces?
The 58 are going to be outside of that system.
Outside of that system altogether?
Correct, yes.
Okay,
Puzzle system services other uses, so.
perfect, thank you.
I don't want to get into it. There's more to that letter. There's a backstory to that letter around the easement and an argument that there's a permanent right to use the Sheridan lot, which we dispute, and there's then become a public issue as this project has gone forward. But again, for the record, I've spoken to this at the HDC. I anticipate to the planning board, I'm going to write a letter to the city and the city attorney. We are going to honor the existing easement, which provided for the 58 surface lot parking spaces. Those spaces have been temporarily moved to the Sheridan Underground Garage, provided for by the easement. And once the development is complete, those spaces will be moved back from a surface lot to a covered garage in the same area of the existing easement,
Understood.
and they will not be stacked spaces,
Okay,
for the record.
okay. So, I mean, just to avoid that question being raised and to formalize that commitment that you've just made here, that would probably be a revision we'd want to just have noted somewhere, that where that's being provided for, I don't know.
Besides speaking today, there's litigation pending, and we've
Rather.
represented that to the court, and I am going to write a formal letter. I'll address it to your chair, I'll address it to the planning board chair, and I'll also send it to the city attorney confirming what I just said.
I mean, I don't know the terms of that easement, and I don't know that it's this body's responsibility to enforce the terms of the easement, but we would want to respect that the spaces are provided for and accounted for. And so that's kind of where we are. I definitely would have legal review the letter to make sure that I'm not missing anything in that
And
discussion.
I'm going to attach the copy of that exact easement, because the language is straightforward and it's been honored since it was created. Certainly, we know that the plans that have been submitted by my client provided for those 58 parking spaces. So we've been upfront that we're going to honor those, but there's been an attempt to force us through the litigation to provide those spaces in the Sheridan lot. We've allowed this temporary parking. You know, from our perspective, it'd be inappropriate to pull the city into that issue, which is really a matter of litigation.
All right. I think, I understand.
Thank you.
So how do we feel? Do you want to see this one more time? I mean, I know you don't, but
I mean, there's quite a few items
Yeah.
on there. I mean, there's a few revisions, but there's quite a few notes that need to be added. So it really, we'd have, the packet for planning board would be due next Friday, so that's a very tight timeline, given there's a lot of items on there. So I'll defer to you. We would just need to have that review complete. I might caveat any sort of approval that we, verify with the legal department that our position, our stated position is the correct one, which is that we just need to see those provided for in the count, and if we are not a party to the terms of that easement, or the terms are ambiguous enough as to not, affect where they're located, that we would let that be handled in, through however, as you work through that negotiation. So I might have that caveat if we did move it forward. Otherwise, I'll defer to Public Works if they would like to see one more time.
I think I'd like to see it one more time, just for the changes that have been requested. I mean, they're fairly minor, but I'd just like to make sure that they're all done and before we sign off on it. I don't know if you feel the same way, Dave, or Zach, but.
I'm on the fence, to be honest with you. I think they've done a fairly good job, with the exception of the sewer, which we asked for a couple of times now, being shown. But
Yeah, they're not
I
major.
understand their position. I get it. It's a substantial project, so.
So one alternative would be to clear them of TAC and then put them on the December agenda, which would give more time for the revisions to be cleared. And it would just allow, that is our practice when we have lots of comments, but they're minor, and then it gives us time to review and go through those. So it gives us a month, but they could be on the December agenda and just out of TAC. It gives me time to also make sure that I have that clearly explained in the memo to the planning board, and that I've had legal guidance in that, because they'll be looking for that as the questions are raised and before the planning board.
Yeah, I would be comfortable with that, because they are minor revisions.
And then they have time to work through, but recognizing that before the planning board submittal date, all of the comments would have to be fully satisfied before the December planning board submittal date, which, do you know what that is off the top of your head?
I don't.
Somewhere in,
Get it to you.
yeah.
I think it's around the 23rd of November. Sorry.
Yep. Spot on, 23rd of November.
You can hold it up.
Is that the day
one
before
more
Thanksgiving?
month, or you can.
Yeah.
You can move forward and then make all the outstanding comments must be satisfied with the submittal that comes in on that day, or before that day.
So either way, it goes to the December planning board.
Yeah.
Assuming it comes out of
Everything.
TAC in November, or in December.
It would
sorry.
just need to be out of this board before. Wouldn't have to come back here.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to say.
Yeah, I would be in favor of that moving it forward, as long as we have a chance to see the final revisions.
Dave, I'll still wait to hear from anybody else that might want to hold it one more month.
You okay moving it forward? And
Yeah, I am.
okay. We have a motion to move it forward, as long as we can see
That's what
that.
we're looking for, yeah.
Yes, I
Is
would
that,
make that.
okay.
Second.
Any comments on your motion? or-
So with the stipulations and revisions that, that we see it all before it.
And that they all be satisfied prior to the ones that make sense to be satisfied, always satisfied prior to the submittal date. So I encourage you to get it in even earlier, so that if there's any other revisions, that those can be caught as well.
All right, any other comments on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll copy your office on my letter as well.
I'd appreciate taking a look at that easement to make sure we understand.
Yeah, I'll copy.
I don't know that I have that.
All right, next item on the agenda is the request of Tom Ballin and 8KPH LLC, owner and applicant for property located at 161 Deer Street, requesting site plan review approval for the construction of a 4-story building to include a penthouse, commercial space, 19 dwelling units, and associated site improvements. Said property is shown on Assessor Map 125, Lot 17-3, and lies within the Character District 5, Downtown Overlay, North End Incentive, and Historic Districts. Take it away.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. TAC committee members, John Chagnon from Ambit Engineering. Carla Goodnight, project architect, is here. Terrence Parker, landscape architect. Carl Ballin, owner and applicant. We were here 2 months ago for a meeting where you had some comments and suggestions. We took the time to address those, and we submitted 20th October revised plans to address, hopefully, the comments. We have more comments that we received yesterday, and I have a submission package. 6 this way. 5 that way. I don't know if you want me to do a general overview or just go into the specific comments, since we did present the project.
Yeah, I think you can go straight to the comments. I think
Okay.
we'll-
Okay. So, the comments, first comment is that the, please confirm 88 Maplewood address has been confirmed by Jamie McCarty in emergency response. And we did reach out, and there is an email from Mr. McCarty in the page 3, and he is not able to assign us 88 Maplewood. He gave us a list of possible assignments, and we're going to pick 70 Maplewood Avenue. So we will revise the plans to say the project is 70 Maplewood Avenue for the next submission, hopefully to the planning board. Comment 2, please add more trees to the northern corner of the property where the driveway previously was. So also in the submission on page 4 is a landscape plan markup. And so the number of street trees that was proposed is in keeping with the ordinance requirements. When you get to that northeast corner of the property, it is an area where there's a significant amount of electrical infrastructure on the applicant's property. He's expanding an easement and providing more space for electrical equipment on his own property. So we need to work with Eversource to make sure they're comfortable with the access to that equipment. We understand that that's not the most beautiful thing that presents itself to the street. However, Mr. Parker has shown metal screen fence that will be shielding those transformers with a historical theme that he wants to put on there. So we have shown on this additional landscape exhibit an additional street tree. Possibly we'll work with Eversource and try to locate that in an appropriate point in that vicinity, if that is okay to Technical Advisory Committee. There's also a need to get to the grease trap. There's a bike rack, so there'll be a wayfinding sign there too. So we're trying to work those things all together. The next comment, please provide a letter addressing the requested changes from TAC and any other changes made to the updated plan set and then the next submission. Yep, we did submit the TAC response letter of September 6th, and that covered a lot of the issues that were on the revised plans. But we should have submitted another letter, and I can tell you that the major changes that were not mentioned in the September 6th letter that came from meeting with you 2 months ago were the driveway location. So the driveway was proposed to be exiting onto Maplewood. It was not deemed to be the most appropriate location for the driveway, so the driveway is moved to accessing the west side of the building in the existing curb cut off Deer Street. There was questions about the park design, and Mr. Parker did some extensive redesigning and upgrading of that design. There was questions about the community space, and we talked about connecting the community space to Deer Street on the west side, which we did, and we updated the community space calculations. There was discussions about that community space dead ending and not providing ADA access on both ends, so we updated it to provide that, and we updated some of the plan details in accordance with requests from DPW. The next comment is that the existing water and sewer needs to be terminated at the main. This should be shown on the demo plan. So as Mr. DeFosis instructed, I reached out to Mark Batchelder, who was the consultant on the Deer Street reconstruction project, and he explained that the existing water services to 161 Deer Street were set up on a 4-inch pipe that terminated in a gate valve outside of the right-of-way, and the intent is that those existing services can be removed up to that gate valve, which is not in the right-of-way, so there'll be no cutting of Deer Street, and the plans have been revised to so note that. So I believe
So
that...
we dispute that, just so you know.
You dispute that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I guess you'll have to sit Mark down and tell him...
No, we discussed it, and I think he's mostly right, but slightly wrong. So, the intent was always to terminate the water service in the easiest spot, but that is at the main, at the valve, by removing the piping and putting a blind cap on the backside of the valve, was the intent. And that eliminates the fire service and all the domestic services at once. And as far as the sewer, he doesn't recall having that discussion with you. We still
The sewer.
want the sewer terminated at the main as well.
I never talked to him about this.
Okay.
Sewer.
The way that your letter kind of wrote or read, it kind of looked like it.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
So-
I focused on water and didn't see
Yep.
sewer.
It's okay.
So you want the 4-inch taken back all the way to
It's
the
a
main?
6.
It's a 6?
Yep. So you just need to buy a blind flange, go out there and dig it up and put the blind flange on.
Okay, we stand corrected. Next comment? Move the wayfinding sign closer to the tracks, away from the lighting. So we've spotted a location on sheet C3 for your consideration. Again, we'll have to coordinate with the street tree. Probably put it in front of the street tree, since it's a sign that would be facing the southbound traffic on Maplewood. Next comment, line up the sprinkler, water metering, and fire suppression room with the actual location of the water lines. Sheet C4, we've extended that sprinkler room. We'll revise the plans accordingly as we go forward. 7, the street lighting circuit must originate from a street light or street light pole box. It's currently shown going to the Eversource box. So I can get together with you, Dave, and you can point out where we should connect that.
Directly next to one of those luminaires that's already in across the street.
Okay, so tap in at a luminaire
Yeah,
across the
they'll
street.
insert a pole box right next to the structure. You can then come out of and then run new connectors from the box into that light. So that's the easiest way to do it. And we generally use the 14-inch DOT. Forget what the item number is, but that's the pole box that they use for traffic loops. They usually use the same box for pole boxes for lighting. So it's right in the DOT standard plan set. It's a standard detail.
Okay.
14-inch box, not the 18.
Is that going to be placed in the...
We place right next to the existing light pole across the street,
In the brick?
in the brick. Yep.
Okay.
And you'll have to cross the street in the same spot as hopefully your water service, so that you're only making one patch of the road.
Or we could choose the one we have to go back to the main to
That's what I'm talking
To,
about. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah. That's right. The elimination, if the other one's in already. Gotcha. Sorry. Okay, next one, if we're ready to move on. Note should say extend existing water stubs to building. So we change that note on sheet C5. Need to add standard light pole detail. We added detail U on sheet E4.
And that is not correct. That is not the city standard light.
Maybe look at the current one. Is that on the website? Current one?
No, but it's on 3 or 4 other plan sets that you've done the last couple of years.
Okay.
It's just not, it's not even, it looks like it, but it's not it.
It's like the-
It's the wrong
Is that
height,
Sternberg?
wrong lantern, wrong material, wrong everything. You want to use the one with the new stamp
Newsstand, right?
lantern and the 10-foot 2-pole made by Spring City, Otto Hancock. The one we've been using for 25 years. Please.
Okay. Permit turning radius in and out of parking garage to confirm there are no conflicts with parked cars on the adjacent bank lot. So we submitted a turning template.
Is it in the set? I haven't.
Thought I didn't include it here.
Oh, it's in here? Oh,
It was in the original
On the
submission.
plan?
Before the plan set. I used to.
there, let me see. There it is. Okay.
Get it right in front.
Yep. Never saw it. Thank you.
The next comment, $50,000 contribution to be made for video detection for the Mayfield Avenue corridor signal system. So that just came yesterday.
Yep.
And I guess we just need to see the detail of the total expenditure and,
Yeah, we haven't bid it out yet, so it'll be whatever it is when we decide to bid it out, and that depends on when you build the building and what the costs are at the time, and so we're just asking you for a fixed amount. If it's more than that, we'll cover the cost. If it's less, then, as you saw, the last applicant had to also pay for video detection,
right.
so.
It sounded like his plan set was they were going to build it.
They were gonna build it, yep.
They're going to build it.
So part of the Deer Street Associates subdivision plan was to put all these signals on video detection.
Gotcha.
So they're doing one, you're doing the other two.
Gotcha. We get to do two.
And I am not asking you to realign a $200,000 sewer line.
Okay. We're reaching our wallet. Thank you. Being kind. Also kind. Thank you. Yep. Trees and Green Committee will need to approve the tree grades, planting details, and planting species, and Mr. Parker met with them and on September 14th, and there's a copy of the approval in the packet. So the Trees and Greenery is well aware, and they're on board with what was proposed. Those are the comments. Any other items that we need to address? We'd be glad to answer your questions. We're moving this along. Pat?
Going back to the turning template, what's the vehicle that you use on that?
That's a passenger vehicle.
Yeah. Such as?
Car.
Like what size?
Car. Regular size car. Yep.
Well, Lincoln Continental's a passenger vehicle. Are we talking about
Smart car.
What if Uncle Buck comes over?
That's the standard, ASHTO, I think it's a PU, is that they call it, Eric?
The P, is it the 19 footer? I was trying to look at that.
It looks like you can make the door just a little bit wider and not screw up the column layout.
Yeah.
The turning template to me, as a novice, and I leave it to Eric, but I'm opening my mouth, looks like it just barely works. And if the door was a little bit wider, it'd probably be a little bit better.
Yeah. Or if we recessed it a little bit at that first floor level, we'll work on that.
I think it may be a little wider on the architectural. Possibly.
Yep, be good to have a margin of error there.
So you can work with Eric to determine how wide the door should be. Sound okay? Eric?
Yep.
Okay.
John, is it just the one easement, the Eversource easement revision? Is there any other easements?
There's no new easements, just the Eversource easement.
That's just the revision.
Although
change to
we
an
might
existing-
have a second easement. I think we need to put an easement. It's kind of, there's a city sewer, a city drainage easement to the west of the building. So I don't know I think that precludes building there, so I don't know that we need to put a building easement, no building, but we can if you want us to. That would be the only other easement. And then there's a second Eversource easement. We've been working with Eversource on the electrical feeds and the service design. So, mentioning that on the utility plan, there will be another easement, but it's on 17-2. So we're proposing on the utility plan that I just handed out to place another junction manhole on the 163 Deer Street property. The primary loop up there, and then that can be connected to the primary loop that is terminated now at the last manhole in Connery Place.
Is that the current grease trap?
And the secondary one that comes up
D3.
and then crosses the street to feed the 238 Deer Street building.
So there's a easement revision, there's a
Yep.
potential no-build easement if we require it, is that correct? And there's a third easement that might be in place?
Yes, there's an easement for another Eversource manhole so that they can pull wires from the new transformer at the project site in the northeast corner
Okay.
to be able to tie to the.
Okay, so two easements to benefit Eversource, and then a no-build easement.
If it's needed, I'm not sure, I haven't heard that that's been needed, I don't think it is.
Dave's saying no, so it's just the two. Okay.
Yep. But we would probably do a separate plan for that, just to be clean with Eversource.
You mean the two separate easement plans? for
Yeah,
two
we want an
Eversource?
easement plan.
Okay,
separately.
we'll just make that a note for you.
Peter?
So it looks like the landscape plan changed in terms of the back of the building. And it looks like you can get through now, all the way through.
Yes.
Can you just go over that a little bit, just how that's going to flow through there? I'm just having a little trouble.
Yep.
It looks like it's pretty open, but are those benches at grade, everything at grade, or how?
Everything's at grade. There's benches are the same distance as the sidewalk there, so there's plenty of ADA space between the benches.
Okay.
So the benches are located in the notch of the buildings, and there's an awning over there. So the first layer of benches that's against the building will be covered by an awning. So it's basically designed to facilitate gatherings, to have the long view of the open sky over the railroad tracks. So the benches, so you can sit either facing each other or you're back to the building. So it facilitates gathering and single occupant kind of hanging out. It's really defined in the beginning by this historical themed screen that will wrap around the transformer area on three sides with an opening for the gate. So what I'm doing is I'm creating a design based on the history of the North End, the urban renewal, some of the, there's a woman there, Rose Fianna DACA that was part of the mural project I was on earlier in the city, where we're trying to acknowledge the role some women played in the history of Portsmouth that have been unrecognized. And she was a community advocate in the, in the 60s. So there's images of her, there's images of the rope company that was there in the early years, and there's a map of the Islington Creek with the rope walk. There'll be images of, families and other buildings that were removed during the urban renewal project. So that'll all be kind of this metallic screen that wraps 3 sides from Maplewood facing the cemetery, and then where you would come along the back of the building and look at that, so you'd see it from all sides. So basically, the design is, it's a passive urban park where you walk through. There's a lot of trees there. There's also the storm, the infiltration area that John has created, which can't have any trees around it. So there's no trees in that one space. So there's basically 3 different sitting areas, so different parties can sit, independently of each other, and it's all ADA accessible, so you can have a 360-degree movement around the building. And again, it gives you a big view of, the sky to the northwest there across the railroad tracks.
So are you above the retaining wall?
Above the retaining wall.
You're above the retaining wall. How big is the retaining wall? How tall is that?
So the retaining wall is only 2 or 3 feet.
Okay.
And
We lowered the grade so we could get that access.
Okay.
And there's a fence on top of that wall.
And there's a fence on top of that? Okay.
Right.
Yeah, to
14.
keep you out of the railroad tracks.
It's an open railway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Picket.
Black metal, right?
Black metal is, yeah. it
Yeah.
was in the
And there's a lot of-
HDC.
So the planting plan, I tried to, like I did on that foundry sculpture, I tried to infill that little circle with plants that are kind of associated with railroads. So there's similar,
Great. Yeah, it looks a lot better than it did to start.
yeah, at the start, there was very little design.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to add to that. I think you've done a good job making this park more functional. I think it was pretty marginal what we saw last go-around. I just have a few questions about some of the materials and some suggestions for maybe making it a little more inviting to the public, because I think the geometry of what you're proposing for that screen around the mechanicals and the right angles to get into that walkway behind the building aren't particularly inviting for a passerby to find their way down, and I think maybe you want to consider reducing the length of the screen so it doesn't wrap 3 sides. I mean, there's crushed stone in there, 3/4. I don't know that it wouldn't be better if it was a brick surface with less screen and the ability to move through it a little better. We walk around these things now, but I think even rounding your corners where you got your curving that's holding up the landscaping. So, nothing is more.
Want to walk through the transformer area?
I don't know why you couldn't. Why not? People are going to be walking on the backside of it if the way it's set up. There's no barrier to completely block it off. I just think because you've only got 4 or 5 feet next to your fence, it's not going to be readily obvious. This is a public access space, a public pocket park, not a private park for the tenants and the unit owners.
Okay, so the hope is that with the screen there, and
Yeah.
the screen wraps around, that you see the screen from 2 sides.
Right.
Coming from north to south, and then from, the east. So you're going to follow the screen around and rather than go through transformer area. So we had discussed, and it was rejected by Eversource, putting polywrap,
Yeah, on the transformers.
which is done in
Yeah.
numerous cities and states around the country.
Which would be preferred.
We can't do it here for some reason. So that's,
No, I get that this is a substitute, but.
well, it's not a substitute, it's.
Well, you're trying to screen, the polywrap would screen the transformers.
Right,
The
but you'd
fence
be
is-
walking through the middle of blocks of.
You'd be doing that if they were actually wrapped. I mean, what would you be doing if they were
Well,
wrapped?
you would see it from the side that has to remain open. So there was an option that we're talking about doing a multi-purpose screen.
So one thing though, Nick, is that they require that the transformer pads be proud in the ground by,
I mean, they're all over downtown. I mean, and very few of them are screened.
I know, but
It's
if
not that it's a bad idea, I just think, I think what suffers here is your walkway, and whether that screen is going to be enough of an obvious attractant to somebody walking by, that you can go around this screen wall and get behind the building and not feel like you're in somebody's private space.
Well, I think the way the client and I are working on this is that it will be an attractive enough screen, and because of the continuity of the materials from the, you know, the Maplewood sidewalk to the walk that goes up to the back, you're going to be drawn in naturally without wanting to.
Well, I hope you're right. I'm not sure you're
Yeah.
you're right. That's what I'm.
What if you removed one tree and you put the path through here so that when you're looking in, you can see the path without having to have this blind corner? The
Yeah, there's
path
nothing
continues
worse than
through.
that eagle.
I really don't like that blind corner.
Well, the park right now that sits on the corner of Porter and Church is a great example of a horrible place to walk through, because everything is a right angle with the eagle posted in the middle. It's an old comfort station that the.
Oh, yeah, but
city-
that's not a city sidewalk, though, so I agree with you.
Well, it is a
completely.
city sidewalk,
Well,
and then you're going into a little park, but it's very annoying to walk through there and have those right
Well, listen.
angles.
He has told me, for the record, multiple times that he hates Cicero area.
The what?
At least you're being consistent.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, check out the park.
Yeah, so if we did what you say, we'd lose green space.
Well, you might lose a little, yeah.
One.
Yeah, maybe, and I'm not even.
Angle that corner?
Well, just kind of bring it in and.
All right, we could do that.
You know, doing this, check out that park.
Well, it's a work. Yeah,
That's why it's a little more inviting.
Hopefully you didn't come here thinking this was perfect. So we're just giving you ideas.
No,
And I know you put a lot of time into it, Terrence, and I think you do great work. So just give
round
them,
off the corner there.
yeah,
Right.
with or
They
without.
might even be bad ideas, but at least they're ideas.
Exactly. We're trying.
Rounding a corner is always a good idea.
Yeah, that's a good answer. Also on the fence, round the corner on the fence.
On the what?
Yeah, on the fence.
On the fence.
Make it more.
Just small fillets, like even a 3-foot radius.
Yeah, tree, fine, yeah.
Yeah, we could do that. We could do all of those rounded edges.
Okay, sounded good.
Perfect.
Are you using vertical granite curbing along the back of the whole, the landscaping? I couldn't see a note to that effect, that gray line that's going around.
It's flush. because
Is it flush, but
yeah,
is it
the water
granite?
has to go across it, so it's not.
What is it?
It's a
it a granite curb?
No, you mean on the edge of the.
On the back of
Edge of
that
the grass.
walk, is this brick back
So
here?
it's the edge of the walkway to facilitate drainage, so when plants grow up, they don't block the water from flowing off the sidewalk. So you know how
So it's flush, but you're saying it's gravel and.
it's a crushed stone
Crushed
edge.
stone, okay.
So it facilitates drainage, so the plants don't block drainage coming off the walkway because it pitches away from the building.
I like it.
All right.
Very
Dave
thoughtful.
likes it. There are no steps at the back corner, correct? Because it looked like a
Correct.
fence, there was a double fence when you looked at an elevation of the building, and maybe the elevations are lagging the revised landscape
You mean
plan.
the rendering?
That place, yeah.
The elevations. I think the elevations show two fences at the back of the
yeah.
building, so just make sure you make them correspond.
Yep.
You know, I don't know what Eric thinks about the, I like the 4-foot walkway you brought out to Deer Street.
Through there, super.
I have some concern, but I leave it to the experts on the safety of the pedestrians crossing the garage opening with, maybe you need an audible alarm or something like we did on Bridge Street, because it's a very narrow, let's call it sidewalk. And it's flush, right? That's a flush-mounted sidewalk. That curb isn't raised along the side of the building, correct?
Correct.
Does it make any sense? Can you raise it anywhere except the entrance, or have you got issues with something else? Could you raise it and then dip it down at the entrance to the garage?
Well, at our discussion, at the last discussion, we talked about it being flush.
Well, I'm asking you,
Ease.
regardless of that discussion.
You need the backup for the car.
All right, well then, are the cars actually going to hit that curb if they're backing up? Won't they hit the wall before they hit the curb?
Haven't we already talked about this on
No,
another
I'm
site?
just asking.
And another site.
Yeah.
It's the
Is that a
same
what?
issue, isn't it? As across the street?
The stadium,
Stady?
Yeah,
yeah, the back.
right. And then the other building across the street that's got the red light that constantly goes off all the 24/7.
Not ringing a bell to me.
It's
Anyway,
fixed? Oh.
So that's a brick walkway, right, behind the building and along the side of the building? Everything matches the brick and the sidewalk, correct?
Yes.
Just confirming that. And you're going with the horn beams, right? That's what the
Well, the
trees and
street-
greenery wanted?
There's
Street trees.
3 species.
Oh.
Columnar maples, columnar oaks, and columnar hornbeam.
Okay, and they've all been through the
Yes.
trees and greenery, good. Your tree grates that's all flush, that dark rectangular area, right?
all flush.
Yeah, I think it's awesome.
I like it too.
Wow, write that down. Are the urns permanent, or are they just sitting out there? Are they anchored, so they can't be carted off, or are they a permanent
To be
fixture?
determined.
Okay,
Thanks for asking that.
all right,
I think
on that, Tom?
they're not permanent, but they're going to be hard to move.
all right. Just because they're heavy? Yeah. Okay. I think that's probably all I had. So, yeah, I think the biggest issue for me was where the transformers are. Just making this pass the sniff test for a viable pocket park for the public in order to grant the added volume to the building, because that's what's being put into this. And I think you're close, but I'd ask you to tweak,
Yeah, that's good.
working on the corners and
Tweaking is good.
and if you're trying to screen the transformers, I don't know why you wouldn't put a return on your screen to the one that's facing the intersection of Deer and Maplewood, because you're going to be able to see into that.
Well, it's it's a service area that may eventually have, it used to was a driveway, but
Yeah, so
Yeah.
there's a grease trap that needs servicing. It's where the bikes come in, but you can look at that.
That's not a good answer. Yeah.
not a good answer.
No.
We're going to look at
Go
that.
look at it.
Better answer. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you. Terrence.
Good job, Terrence.
And, yeah, Nick raised it,
Together.
Nick brought up a good point about the driveway. You need some type of a device, letting traffic know there's someone coming in or out at the same time, so that they wait their turn if they need to come in or out.
Thank you, Eric.
And if a pedestrian's walking by, let them know that someone's coming out. I think it's similar setup across the street, the flashing light or the sign.
Yeah, we
The end is
thought
flush,
there
I
would be
think.
a lot less traffic.
Yeah,
Yeah, we could put it there, clearly.
but it's just as far, at least the people coming in, the vehicles coming in and out need to know if there's someone else coming in or out.
All right, any other comments? I'm going to open it up. If there's anyone from the public
Can put a garage door in that.
wishing to make any comments,
Door goes a little longer.
no one on Zoom. So we'll close the public comment portion and open it up for further discussion. What do you feel?
Well, for what it's worth, I feel like all the things I rattled off are pretty minor, and they can be addressed. I think they were heard, and we'll make an honest effort.
I agree. All Nick's stuff was minor.
Barely consequential, right? It's not only you guys, it's abuse. He's good.
Is there anything on your end that you'd want to see again, or could we?
I would want to see it before it goes to the planning board, just to confirm everything got updated properly. We have the right lantern, and the electrical is on there properly. But they are minor as well.
Do you want to do?
Couldn't we look at that
Do you want to do what
offline?
we did for the last
Russell?
applicant? And get all the revisions, have to be all satisfied, comments provided today, and outstanding comments prior to the submittal to the planning board. It all has to be updated and reviewed. 2 weeks, or do you want to see it back in front of this body?
seeing the comments, not bringing it back to you.
You look at it, you look at it.
All right, so we had the door width, right?
She wants to go through the list? or-
Yep.
Okay. If you want to go through the list.
Signal cameras.
To be honest, I didn't keep up with Nick's comments.
I can give them to you.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
figured.
They're also minor, don't worry about
I
it.
also added a comment
Off on the
that
edges.
please add an easement plan that identifies the
Easement plan.
the description of both the Eversource easement. One's a revision and one's a new easement.
Okay, so we have all of the comments as noted in the staff comments as well as John's responses to those here. There were a couple that were disputed by DPW, which will flag for further review
Yep.
prior to submission. We have the wider garage door opening. We have the easement plan, which includes the revised easement for Eversource, the no-build easement, should it be deemed necessary.
We've already said no on that, that we don't need that.
Okay, never mind. And then the Eversource manhole easement. Does that sound right?
And you have the luminaire, street luminaire,
That is
being the
9.
wrong,
That's number 9. Need to add a
Correct,
light
street
pole
light detail.
detail, and then the one they provided is not correct.
73
Yep.
Okay.
okay?
Need to provide, maybe just
Change out the detail with the appropriate.
need to add appropriate light and correct on the street.
Yep. And the signal for the door.
Yeah, the vehicle
And the
entering.
signal for the door.
Yep. Do you want any specific type of warning there?
It usually like it's a green light, red light, you know, let them know if someone's coming in or out.
Oh, that's, I'm sorry.
I think there's one across the street similar to that.
Okay. And
Like
then,
that better than like the 60 Penn Hollow one? Or?
I've grown to hate the flashing red light. I don't know if you've noticed. I see it every day.
It's good now.
Oh, okay.
Traffic was triggering.
4 years later, yes. Well, the door's been open for 4 months, 4 years.
then Nick's comments, which he will detail for me.
You heard him.
Yep. All the third-party reviews have been,
There weren't any.
oh, there weren't any. Okay, cool. Does that cover it?
You looking for a motion?
Did they do a public?
What's this?
Yeah,
Yes.
you did.
So I'll make a motion to move this on
Second.
with all the conditions that we've talked about
Updated and reviewed prior to
and
this.
updated and reviewed prior to the submission of the planning board.
All right.
Thank you.
Zach, you seconded that? Pat?
Pat.
That's Pat. Okay. All right. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Before the
Aye.
So that the submittal on the 21st.
Any opposed?
So I guess that's what I'm
We're all
gonna
good.
say.
Motion carries. All right.
So usually it's Thursday from now that we need to get it back.
I mean, I'm just saying that the submittal on the 23rd needs to be complete and it needs to be updated, so if you
So
need
this
to.
is for the December
Yeah, for
planning
December,
board meeting,
so-
not November.
Oh, we're not doing, we
No,
don't
so
do it
just,
that way.
you might want to get in a little early so they can review and we can confirm.
So the deadline is November 23rd.
The holidays are coming.
Deadline, 'cause that's,
Well, anytime,
It's gotta be well
you can get it,
before that.
you can get it in well before then if you have it ready.
Saying the earlier the better.
That's the latest.
earlier the
That's the
better,
latest.
yes, yes,
2 months become 1.
yes. And so then it's December planning board.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And good work on this project.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, next item is the request of Seaport Realty LLC owner for property located at 85 Daniel Street, requesting site plan approval to add a 2-story rear addition and convert the existing structure into a 4-unit building consisting of 2 apartments and 2 live-work units. With associated stormwater, utility, and site improvements, said property is shown on Assessor Map 107 as Lot 8 and lies within the CD4 and historic districts.
Good afternoon, Peter. Chris Mulligan from Boson and Associates. On behalf of the applicant, I have with me Mark Giannini and Richard Desjardins from Kenry Architecture, along with Lane Cheney, the owner of the property. So I think the significant issues or changes from last time we were here would be found on the site plans. What we have proposed to do is install parking lifts in the covered garage. So we now have, as proposed, a total of 6 off-street parking spaces. The other, I think, significant item is that we've worked with the basement egress stairway and believe it's now compliant and shouldn't cause a light safety change. Other than that, I think the changes that were requested were relatively minor, and I think we addressed them in the submission. I know yesterday, I believe it was yesterday, we received some feedback, and what we're circulating is some detail on the proposed lift system that we would like to install. So other than that, I would just turn it over to Mark to go over some of the technical details.
Yeah, so as Chris was just mentioning, this is really a basis of design and conceptual, just to show you that the lift does work in the space provided. We have a fairly high floor-to-floor or grade to second floor here. We've got 11.5 clear in order to provide space for stacked cars. As we've shown in kind of the other floor plans and site plan, the intent is that there are 2 garages, each would have a lift in it, and those 2 parking spots would be associated with the units, the 2-story units, the larger 2-bedroom units on the second and third floors. The cut sheets on the second and third page here show you some more specifics of the lift and the spaces that are required. And we've highlighted on the third page here overall width and length of what's required for the lift and what we have available, currently showing in the garage plans. So you can see that what we have available exceeds what's needed by this particular manufacturer. And as Chris mentioned, most of the additional comments that we received last time we were here were site-related and are addressed. And we also spoke with Deputy Howe regarding the basement egress, which was a comment we received last time, and I feel that it is now sufficiently shown to meet NFPA on the plans that we've submitted. With that, we'll happy to answer any questions you guys have.
All right, thanks. Any questions from TAC members?
Why does the garage step down at the end of the ceiling?
Really? Yeah, it's really just allows space for drainage for the deck above. So if it actually steps down or not,
You might not need to do it. Good with that. And is there a sensor on the ceiling to prevent a taller vehicle from going into the ceiling?
I haven't looked that far into the controls of the system, but
People aren't always
Yeah, no, it's got to be something.
You're not driving a Mini, are you?
Got it. No.
Close.
It's hydraulic, right?
correct.
No.
How do people get into the garage? Is it through the garage door, or is it through the side door, or internal?
It's either through the garage door or through the man door there from the center hallway of the building. Yeah, on A1. There's a door leading into each garage bay on the center corridor.
Yeah, okay. Yep. 20 inches on either side of this lift machine?
top of my head. I mean, the way these are, yeah, there's at least 2 feet, but there's 4 posts basically that control or hold the lift and space on either side of the ramp that actually holds the tires in the vehicle.
So if you didn't need the lift, you'd leave it up. You only have one car.
Yeah, we could leave it up out of the way.
So, right, so
Well, you probably drive,
Say
well,
141.
you could drive out of it, so the next person could lift it if they come in.
that takes a hundred.
How you're
Saying
gonna
you only
manage
have
it?
one
Yeah.
car.
How are you opening the door to your car? Well, that's the lift itself. But you only have 20 inches off the door to the house.
Strike 2.
Right, so I mean, it looks like if you get 141-inch width of the garage and the unit is 100 inches wide from base to base, that you've got, 20 inches to either side to get out of your vehicle and then walk into the door going to the house. Is that?
They gotta go over that. They gotta go around the stanchion and over the arm to get in the house.
Yeah, if the lift is down.
Yeah.
It'd be 20 inches between the hydraulic post and the wall.
Exactly right, yeah. So it's just that one pinch point.
Yeah, it's that one pinch point on all 4 posts. That's it.
And do we know what the width is from the edge of that post to the edge of the actual ramp? Or lift itself? On the back, yeah.
So you'd add another foot roughly between what they call the runaways, which is where you park your car on top of it. So it'd be roughly 32 more inches.
What dimension's that?
Oh, no, wait, no, just 20. 32, 24. From like essentially where they have it as labeled N between the 2 ramps for the car wheels. So from the edge of that to the wall will roughly be like 32 inches, plus or minus.
What about the height of the platform that the vehicle sits on? Because you've got a ceiling height, it looks like it's, well, not a ceiling height, excuse me, you have a dimension of 7
It's
foot
11.5.
What's that?
11.5, the ceiling height.
No, that's not the question. So you've got a dimension of 7 foot 2.5.
So that's that dimension is to the maximum height that this particular lift can elevate to.
Okay.
So they can lift it up that high and have it out of the way if they only have one car, or if they have a really short car.
I see. Right.
Like, for instance, if you had a convertible with the top down, you could potentially lift it up that high.
So there's so the actual height from the garage floor to the underside of the platform that the vehicle's sitting on, is like, where are we at with that? So you just.
It's variable.
6 foot.
Yeah, it
Of
varies.
course, but lowest.
Lowest is on the ground.
Sure, you have a vehicle underneath it.
Huh?
In other words, see what I'm getting at? Seems like you got a 20-inch wide pathway, and you've got these ramps that are potentially at head height. I mean, I'm just wondering, I'm trying to play that scenario out as
The ramps are also removable. You can lift them out, and they have it so you can place it perpendicular in between the runaways.
Okay. So if you're not using it,
We're not
then you
using
put them
it.
away. Right.
So if the car is going to be stored long
He's talking
term,
about this.
Yeah, I get it.
Oh, that's what he's talking
Walk by.
I can't believe the manufacturer hasn't sold that one. He's talking about these things hanging out here and you walk.
Yeah.
They go to your forehead.
that's what as I mentioned, those are removable.
But there's probably, yeah, I don't know that that's what you'd want to do if you had a car up there. Be putting them on and off.
Only if it
But
was
there probably,
part for the season.
there probably is a solution.
I think typically they flip up. After you drive the car up, you lift, or
Yeah, call them.
before you lift
They got
it
an
up.
answer.
Yeah. This is a long car.
Be out of business. Good catch.
It's just say it's 144 inches, 141 inches, almost 12 feet, right? Outside wall, partition wall, that's a foot and a half, and it's
Yeah, I
possible,
mean,
but.
This way, they're saying,
Yeah, I know.
it's 141 wide, and then the width is 100.
What about the rest
so
of this
it's
project?
saving 20.
Is that the only thing we're looking at?
Yeah, really, there was
Seems
no
to me-
comment.
Any comments on anything?
Yeah.
Remind me why we asked for the live work unit and why that's gone away now.
We're looking at A1, and
We
it just
wanted to have an
doesn't look
active
like
ground
it's
floor
drawn to
use
scale because
in a district that
Yes,
wasn't, didn't require it.
Because
Yeah.
that was drawn before
Before you had the
before we
specs.
received the comments from yesterday.
So it's not their detail dropped on your plans, it's
Correct.
something you drew. Okay.
I don't know, seems like a tight squeeze, but, you know, it's pretty uncomfortable.
It's a brave new world for parking, I think.
If they don't like it, they won't buy it.
Right, I think
Right.
generally people would make the sacrifice, you know,
Yeah.
it's very valuable for that extra parking spot, so.
When the snow comes in, they'll make it work.
Yeah, yeah. This,
But a tape measure, I could measure your shoulders, so you have a person, I mean, you're gonna have to go sideways.
I'm not fitting in there.
Me either.
If anything. The what? Yeah.
All right, choice before you eat the burrito.
so the, it's still going to, the second floor's still going to be, you're not going to have to step up to get over the garage, right, because
You know,
same,
this section here?
no,
Yeah.
yeah. No.
So if people get out of these cars and want to go in their unit without going through the interior door, they can go out the big garage door and go in the side, right? As long as they're not beheaded by the ramp.
They're not beheaded. Still have their head on them, yeah.
Clothesline, they're gonna clothesline.
He had the way out.
Are these going to be apartments or condominiums?
I think condo, well, apartments to begin with, but,
I only ask because
Yeah.
I hope you don't get in a situation where this becomes optional and then you're
Right.
back here because they don't want them and you don't want to put them in.
no, my
wanna
plan
see
is
them in here.
to rent the units. They'd have to, when you said before, they could just go out the garage and go in, they'd have to go all the way around.
They'd have to go around the garage.
Right.
to the-
Yeah. Well, they'd have
22
to,
feet.
they'd have to
Around the
go
front
all
of
the
the
way
place.
down the alleyway and then the front.
Oh, so those two doors.
Right,
on
the side
back
doors are
don't-
for the bottom units.
They'd be going into somebody else's unit if
Oh,
they did
good.
that.
So that's not really viable. You
One
got it.
last question on that then. So the overall length is 200 inches. The garage is 225 inches deep. So at a maximum, you have 25 inches before you center or push this, you know, entire lift forward or backward. So if you were to center it, then you'd have 10 inches between the wall and the end of the lift. Is that right? So you'd want
And the door on the backside.
to, what's that?
And the door on the backside.
Well, in the door, so the door swings in, obviously, fortunately, there's no other way you could do that, but you walk out your door, and then you've got 10 inches before this lift is in front of your face. If you centered it front and back, and obviously you push it to the overhead door as much as possible, but
Where are the controls on this thing?
And a remote. It has a control panel. So,
Remote control.
yeah, so, you know, basically it has a up and a down button, and there's a safety switch, I believe, that you just start lowering it. Or we could mount those by the doorway, so that obviously. you
This
don't
one's
have
not
to
bad, at least
worry
it's the
about
driver's
that.
side, but this one, you gotta walk in front of the car to get to the door. For 10 inches.
right, 10 inches.
Right.
Knock it over.
Yeah, it doesn't quite work.
Crawling under that fire. Hope it is.
Electric vehicle fire?
Isn't, just maybe a dumb question, but is that like a sliding garage door? It's not an overhead door, or where does it go? Maybe you need a barn door. Hinge door, right? Because you're gonna lose another foot. How come you didn't get that, Shanti?
That's a really good point, Nick. Nobody got that.
I was waiting for you to catch that
All
one.
right, teamwork.
Sorry, we were over here talking about the dormers on the third floor.
I was looking for combustible mulch.
Maybe a stone.
We're a good group.
What do you have for right-of-way in front of the garage doors?
5 feet.
So you needed a license for the swinging doors if you do it. I don't see why it would be a problem.
They have accordion ones. So you pull it in the middle and it,
Like a bifold, almost.
like a barn, like a, well, you look, bifold, yeah, yeah.
Make it look good. You'll have to bring it in for admin approval, unless it looks just like those. All right.
There's a note here on the cut sheets about a air supply being required for safety lock to disengage. So what does that require? You have to have an air compressor in there as well?
Yeah, you do. Yeah. It's just this particular brand uses a.
You just need to make sure you have room for that as well in there.
Why is this?
Could also be remote compressor in the basement.
Yeah. And then the 30 PSI, for safety lock.
Since we all want to continue to talk about this till tomorrow, why did you choose this particular brand, given there's hundreds out there? I'm just curious how you landed here. What are the attributes of this that are most appropriate for your space?
Yeah, I actually spent the time researching it, and it's really I didn't want to have the air compressor requirement, but this brand really is the best one I found, just quality-wise, and so that's really how we ended up there. I did a pretty exhaustive search. There may be custom ones available, but this is a.
I only say that because I know there's a lot out there. I've looked at them myself.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
if you find something comparable that doesn't have that compressor, I'm
Right.
sure we can accommodate
No,
it
I wanted
later
to
as an adjustment.
Yeah. I know that I would want to look at this a little bit closer before we, there's some safety concerns that maybe it's fine, maybe it's not. So,
The other thing I would add too is just make sure, because it says at the bottom that not all of these lift models meet the standards, ANSI, ALI, ALCTV, which IBC does require that vehicle lifts do in fact meet those standards. So you want to make sure that whatever standard this lift meets, that it coincides with the IBC, the 2018 or 15, whenever you guys apply.
All right, I'm going to entertain any public comment, if there is any. Anyone here want to make any comment? No? All right, we'll close that portion and turn it back to TAC for further discussion.
Where are we? Based on what you just said.
I think we need to come back, need time to look at this, and make sure it's appropriate and safe.
This use is now just residential,
Yep.
so asking a stupid question. Because it's not commercial anymore. Does they still need to be here?
4 units.
It's a 4-unit, yeah.
4 units,
Yep.
okay.
It's 3 or more.
I missed that, I thought it was a 2-unit, but, all right.
And I probably missed this earlier on, but is the lift required to provide a certain number of parking spaces? It is, okay. So the whole plan is contingent upon
The spaces.
2 vehicles per bay, okay. Yeah.
Or some other way to come up with it, but there's nowhere else to put them. It's the only way they can fit them.
We require 4.6 parking spaces, and this gives us 6 parking spaces with the lifts.
Right.
Was that a motion, Pat?
Yeah, come back.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion?
Do they know what they're coming,
Right.
Yeah,
what they're
do you know what
supposed
they're
to
looking
do?
for? What you're,
Do you want to meet with them?
Or we can just say, maybe we can just look at it
I kind of
offline.
like that you
When's the,
look at it.
So, I mean,
You
they
would
have the
check.
rest of the month to, I mean, till the 23rd is the submittal deadline for planning board, for the next planning board, so they would have to resolve any, your concerns, maybe even meet with you separately to go through it, what.
is this the only concern right now?
Seems like it.
What I would do is go to the code book, they're probably gonna talk about clearances around the lift, so it may be dead in the water if you can't get what you need.
So we'd be happy to meet with you, look at this particular lift or other models as well.
Yeah.
I go right to the code book first and see what the clearances are, and, and then go look for the model that hopefully can accommodate it. And if not, then something else will have to be figured out.
All right, so
So we
do you want to
could-
withdraw your motion?
Yeah, I'll withdraw the motion
So a
and leaning
motion to-
towards,
Yeah.
I just want to make one clarifying statement. So if you guys vote to make a recommendation to planning board, then they're out of TAC. If for some reason your research with the lift brings you back to TAC, that will require renoticing and starting from
So,
a new submission.
so right now, the condition would read, work with both building inspections and fire department to ensure that the lift meets all the fire and building requirements. And then we would probably say, anything that would change the footprint of the building or any sort of dimensions would probably have to come back.
Well, yeah.
But I don't think you're gonna do anything like that, so
No, I
you
don't
just
think
need to
they
get a
have
lift
anything
that
to give,
works.
yeah.
You just need to get a lift that works with it.
Well, I would add to that, if for some reason you can't manage to make the lifts meet the code and get it approved, we should support your original request, if you asked for it, for a conditional use permit to be granted for those two spaces. Because that's why you came back with the lifts, is in order to avoid that conditional use. I think that would avoid this needing to be republished for a solution that doesn't exist.
I think that's a good correction.
Yeah.
That they either resolve the lift issues with building and fire.
And you have our
If
support
not,
on the
that
CUP.
Submit a CUP in accordance with city requirements for a parking CUP.
Yep.
That's good, thank you, Nick, that's good.
so moved,
second.
all that.
I can't make a motion because I
No,
know.
Pat made it.
Okay.
Peter seconded. Any discussion further? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries.
Thank you very much.
All right, on to new business.
Crossways, you said?
Crossbay Center.
Crossways, well,
The first item of new business is the request of Jonathan Watson Sobel Revocable Trust, owner for property located at 49 Sheaf Street, requesting preliminary and final subdivision approval to subdivide one lot with an area of 5,402 square feet and 50.55 feet of continuous street frontage on Sheaf Street and 22.93 feet of frontage on Custom House Court into two lots as follows. Proposed Lot 1 with an area of 1,855 square feet and 22.93 feet of continuous street frontage on Custom House Court. And proposed Lot 2 with an area of 3,548 square feet and 50.55 feet of continuous street frontage on Sheaf Street. Said property is located on Assessor Map 107, Lot 21, and lies within the CD4 and historic districts.
Thank you, Chairman. John Shagman from Ambit Engineering. Mr. Sabella is attending via Zoom. Ms. Mulligan, counsel for the applicant. We came for a workshop with the board, and so we're back here for the TAC meeting. I think we cleaned some things up based on your comments at the workshop. We received the comments from an email yesterday, staff comments. I don't know if you want me to go through a presentation because we just did a workshop, or just proceed with comments?
The comments.
Okay. moving along, the first one is Note 7 needs to include dimensional requirements. So Note 7 was updated to include the important dimensional requirements, and that's in the handout you have. So lot area, open space, et cetera, is now shown on the plan. Please identify the mechanism for creating easements for lots under common ownership, and included in the submission are the proposed conveyance deeds. They include together with and then subject to as appropriate in the particular deed for Lot 1 and Lot 2. And Lot 1 will be granting a building maintenance, access, and utility easement to Lot 2, and Lot 2 will be granting a building maintenance and no-build easement to Lot 1. And those are shown on the easement plan. Please clarify which statements in Note 8 go to each easement on the easement plan. So that was prior to the one just submitted, so I created Notes 10 and 11, which specifically say that this easement, for example, 11, building maintenance easement over Assessor's Map 107, Lot 2100 to benefit Assessor's Map 107, Lot 2101. And then the notation for the note is in the upper right corner under that 77 square foot easement designation, C Note 11. So I've broken those out to be specific, and then applicant must show new water servicing Lot 1 on plan for city to approve the location. Existing line servicing Lot 1 to be abandoned. So we submit the water service plan tying into the main in Chief Street, running up that narrow corridor. And we added Note 12 on the, to Note 12. Note 12 on the subdivision plan called for that Lot 1 to have a new water service. And we added existing Lot 1 water service shall be abandoned. Hopefully that addresses the concerns, and we can move forward to the planning board. You want to add anything on it? But we're ready to address your comments.
All right, thank you. Any comments from TAC?
I have one.
Sure.
We discussed in the workshop the addressing. Has that been explored anymore? That the rear lot is going to be a custom.
Yes, so the addressing was addressed in, well, it was a phone call from you, Patrick, that it was going to, it's going to be Lot 1 is still going to have a Chief Street address, which then dovetailed into the determination that the proposed lot line between 1 and 2 is a side yard.
Yeah, I wasn't when you because it seems like it should clearly be a custom house court address. The back lot, the garage doors are literally right at the end of custom house court. Did you speak with Jamie McCarty on it? Maybe?
He made an inquiry. Now you're pushing my memory. That came up at the workshop, so we followed the point of inquiry. The applicant also talked about the determination that was made 10 years ago. It had to do with there's no doorway on Custom House Court. It could have the emergency access.
Is that the mention in
workshop that there was a door to the left of the garage door.
Yeah, there
where you
was.
kinda had to go around the
So that might have predated that, the completion of that garage. But I know that I followed up and spoke to, I thought it was you, Patrick, that, had the city made a decision? And clearly was told that the decision was made to keep the Sheep Street address, because that, we wouldn't have resubmitted.
So they can work on
We would have had to go to the zoning board if the decision was made to call the address Custom House Court, because then that would be a rear yard, and we'd be creating a non-conforming rear yard.
Oh, real yard issue, yep.
Yeah.
Could we have a note added that addressing will be discussed by DPW and the fire department? It doesn't have to be done necessarily for planning board, but
So.
I would just like to find a way around that, have our apparatuses, particularly animals called, go to where they need to go as opposed to a street over from where they need to go.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know who else is paying attention, but is it possible to talk about the street address in terms of being for certain purposes and the 911 address being different? I don't know if that's possible, though. I don't know.
I don't either.
Is your question, if the 911 address changes, does it change, like, setbacks for the rear yard or
So
something?
we talked extensively about this project, that the address of the Lot 1 structure is critical to whether or not the proposed property line is a side yard or a rear yard.
I mean, for my part, it's kind of a chicken and the egg thing, that right now, that is where it's addressed off, is that, my understanding is that, or it is addressed off of,
Yes.
so I feel like that it may change with the approval, but that, while it's under review, that's where it's addressed off. I don't know if that's a way to think about it. Do you disagree with that? That's where it is right now. We can't penalize you for a
I'll ask
change.
Peter next, maybe. He'll know
Sense
more
about
than I
it?
do, but.
But they may require him to change the address. What is your preference for that to be addressed off Custom House? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it would be the Custom House Court.
Yeah, but right now, that's not where it's addressed off of.
No, well, right now, it's one lot that has frontage on Sheep Street.
Understood.
When it's subdivided, it won't have frontage on Sheep Street.
Oh, it still will.
Well, it'll have that pathway.
Yeah.
I see. Upon subdivision, it would change to the back, yeah. And that would be the,
What's the problem with doing that?
it just flips the rear yard.
Yeah.
Now we have a 5-foot rear yard setback for Custom House Court.
Wasn't it easy, though, to take that fee and give them an exclusive use, so there's no real discernible impact?
There is an easement proposed in that
that's-
fight.
Behind the building, though, where we're talking about. There's an easement now, there wasn't last week.
That was one of the comments from
Yeah, right. So you're
our
proposing to
TAC
do that?
workshop, was that,
Move the fee line and grant an easement back to the Sheep Street house, so you meet the rear yard setback if Custom House Way is used for frontage and the address?
I think it's the building.
Or is running through somebody else's.
Yeah, but the rear yard is gonna be back
There's
here,
an easement.
where the two lots will then, this will become front, that'll be rear instead of this.
For the subdivision.
So you need
if
a
you-
5-foot.
if you,
Lot line
that
adjustment.
rear yard, though, is really
Sure.
incredibly interesting. You would never know it's there. There's actually
Right.
mature pine trees.
Right.
If you ever walk out there, it's like you come off of Sheet Street and then all of a sudden, I'm in the woods. It's a pretty
Yeah, it's
interesting
pretty cool.
backyard,
Yeah.
and I don't think you would want to change the fee simple ownership line
Well,
so that.
the fee simple ownership line should have no bearing on any of that cool factor if there's an exclusive use easement given back to the the cool rear yard owner. So you just move the lot line
Change
and
the
have
lot
an
line, but
exclusive use
easement
back to the
keeps it
same
the same
person
way.
that's using it, and it would resolve a rear yard setback issue if there is one. That's what we were trying to convey last week.
We could also ask for a variance, but.
Yeah, that's the other remedy.
We're trying to get an answer on that, and I guess we still don't have an answer. But if the planning board could approve it based on the current address with a stipulation that after approval, you could review the addresses,
I mean,
that might be a good way to get around it.
I see your point, is that there, I mean, it wouldn't make any,
Yeah, move the address after.
Yeah.
And
Prior
now
to,
move the address after the approval,
right?
and then there shouldn't be a zoning violation if it's done administratively.
Prior to the approval, but,
Like, what?
it would be.
in other words, what's the date that they would need, no, there's no real building permit going on, so what's the mechanism that?
Recording. Recording of the deed and the plan.
Prior to recordation, you'd want them to resolve the addressing issue, is that what you're saying?
Because then it'd be non-conforming. You have to record it.
After planning board approval, but prior to recordation of the deed.
So can I just ask one other question that speaks to that? Because I don't know if it's coming or not. So we showed a plan with a new water service. When does that come?
It's coming.
When
It's
does it-
coming.
What's coming?
Yeah, I know it's coming, so why don't we just do it now?
Okay, sure. Zach?
Oh, yeah, the water service is going to need to be installed prior to.
Recording the plan.
Recording the
plans.
plan.
Yes.
Yes, I thought that was coming. I
Yeah.
knew that was going to be coming. So he has to redo the water service before he records the plan.
John, you probably explained this, but why
So-
can't you adjust the lot line to be just to the east of that retaining wall? Why can't you move that back?
It's just,
It just makes
it's a
an odd
messier solution, the one that I was proposing.
Makes for an odd line back there.
It would be nicest if there was a way Chris could come up with to allow this to move ahead as having a Sheaf Street address and facilitate a means for us to change the address without, where the nonconformity is not an issue, because we're changing the address. I mean, I'm sure there's instances in the city where we have changed an address and perhaps created new nonconformities inadvertently, and it's not been a big deal, because we're the ones requiring it.
I agree with you 100%. I was just curious how the language would be, after planning board approval,
Yeah,
but prior
I
to
don't-
recordation. Perfect.
So, Chris, it's your turn.
But I mean, but Patrick's already stated.
What's the remedy for that passes the sniff test reasonably well, that you can go ahead with a Sheaf Street address for now?
Well, if we get approved with the Sheaf Street address with the condition that we work with the city to change the address for life safety purposes, which is what this is all about. I mean, this is
Correct.
essentially a fully developed site with, some infrastructure improvements. But, nothing that we're doing is going to impact the built environment out there. So, I don't think it would be a very difficult administrative approval.
Yeah, that's a good answer.
After the fact.
It's a life safety.
When we run into issues on address changes is when the owners don't want the
Yeah,
address
right.
changed because they don't want to
Not
notify
That's not the
everybody.
case here at all.
Right, so.
You're sure about
it
that?
should- Well,
Yep.
But I mean, it would have to be, now hold on a minute, it would have to be for that purpose, or else I'm administratively approving.
Yes.
What is essentially a non-conformity.
That's correct. It would be for that
So it would have to
purpose.
be that Pat requires that,
Yeah.
and that he would like to see it that way.
And for now, it's subject to his review.
And I guess
rather than-
if the good doctor's on Zoom, he can chime in to see if he
There you
if
go.
he has a
You good with
issue
a new
that,
address?
but
No?
my
Can I ask
understanding
you
is
this
no.
question, with the new regulations?
He's raising his hand.
at all, recognizing that their grandfather are the old regulations, but I don't, because your grandfather doesn't mean that you can't take advantage of the new reg, does
The
that
new
change?
regulations don't affect this issue.
Wouldn't establish two.
The ones we just adopted?
Yeah, it doesn't
No.
establish two principles.
It's not a building height thing.
No, I mean, but the question about more than one, it's not, your principal front isn't based on the street you're addressed on, that was a change.
Yeah.
You can have multiple principal fronts, I guess, and that doesn't change what. the
Your
rear-
street address still determines, and this was not part of the amendments, it's still the way it is. Your principal front yard is determined by your street address.
Okay.
can have multiple front yards. but
Understood.
it's-
And right now
So
it's-
right now, it's Chief Street, so
Understood.
you should be good. Would you ask Jonathan if he would accept a new address, should we get to that point later?
I mean, it makes sense, but.
He's not muted.
Yes, so, may I speak at this time?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. The Sheaf Street address was debated extensively 10 years ago. And at our last meeting, it was again discussed. And for 10 years, it's had the 911 address of 49B, A and B, Sheaf Street. And I'm not sure I understand why it would functionally require a change in address when in fact it was accepted by the planning board 10 years ago. And the 911 approval was made for that. And it has been in existence for 10 years. So by its very existence for 10 years, it seems as though it's pretty well accepted. And it appears that we're creating some type of hardship here to now change the address. I don't understand why, for some administrative reason, but no real practical reason, since it has been already legally accepted for 10 years and previously approved by the planning board. So it seems like it's becoming a double jeopardy issue. Thank you.
I think I can probably address that. So 10 years ago, the emergency services were not involved in looking at addresses. So we have been unaware that this condition existed until I walked down there when this first came through and looked at it, and it made absolutely no sense. So, luckily in the last 10 years, there hasn't been a medical emergency there that was time dependent on the outcome where, maybe there was a delay caused by it, but that doesn't mean that there's not going to be one tomorrow or the next day. It could also, it could be anything. It could be a police response delay. We have a lot of addressing problems in the city, and when we see them, we try and fix them, and that's what we're trying to do here.
It's right here. Would you would actually service it on Custom House? Because that's a very, that doesn't look like 20 feet unobstructed.
Well, it's a public way.
I understand that, but usually I understand that you need that 20 feet unobstructed to actually get down in there. So would it be, is that how you would essentially respond to it off Custom House?
Yes, especially for an EMS call, which is 80% of our calls, we would, instead of hauling a stretcher from Sheaf Street up that, we would go right to the garage door and either enter through there or through the door to the side. And if there was a fire at that location, we would almost assuredly put a piece of apparatus on Custom House.
Understood. Okay.
We would make it, yeah.
It sounds like that's
Well-
what's on the table then. Either, I guess what I'm hearing from the TAC is that either we consider that address change under the recommendation of the fire department for fire and safety purposes, or is that what? But I don't think you can get a variance once it's subdivided. We want to see, it's not a question about just the setback. That's a different issue. It sounds like you're going to want to see that address change regardless of.
Correct, yeah. But if we're going to do this after the fact, which I'm fine with doing, it's important that we don't have pushback at the time from the owner because that complicates it. Otherwise, we need to do it before approval.
I understand. So
Are you 100% sure that's where you're going to land? Or do you need time to review this more? I'm only asking.
On the address?
On the address.
Yeah, no, it should be Custom House address.
You're 100%, yeah. So where's your client? Jonathan, you're obviously listening. Do you have a response?
Yes, the access way to the building by G Street would appear a reasonable access compared to the rest of the historic district. The access through the doorway, which is a 36-inch door, is to a 4-foot wide stairwell which accesses the entire interior. So I personally recall that there was a considerable amount of discussion 10 years ago, in particular by the fire department, that the best access for them would be from Sheep Street, and that they would not consider Custom House Court as the access. So it would appear today that we have a 180-degree change in perspective on that issue of access. So once again, I guess I can only go back and say this was proposed, accepted by the planning board, accepted by the various agencies, including the fire department at that time, and I sort of feel as though we're not increasing intensity or use, and it seems as though we're creating more hardship in trying to redo all of the issues. Thank you.
Where would you respond? If there was an emergency, where would you think police would respond to first? If there was a call from that address, would you go to the Custom House? That'd be the.
What's the address that we're given? The Sheep Street? We would go to Sheep Street.
Right, you would go there because that's the address that you were given.
Correct.
But if, let's say that there were no address assigned and you're familiar with the property. And
We'd walk to the back. We run into a number of instances like that where there's an apartment dwelling out back, and we would simply walk through to the back. Yep. But our default is we would have a tendency to go to Sheep Street.
Whatever address was called in is where you would go.
Correct.
Right? So if you were called to Custom House, you feel like in your mind that would make it simpler to get into the dwelling? Or do you, just curious what, police's opinion on that is?
Simpler in the sense that we would, yeah, I have it up there. Simpler in the sense that we would be closer, but there's also some considerations where Customs House is also
That's that little alley that they have.
a dead end.
No, it's.
For tactical considerations, I might not want to drive down Custom House. I might want to be on Sheep Street and have the ability to either go forward or back.
Different than
Right.
police and fire.
Right. If I go down Custom House and I park I'm there. There's no getting out.
Yeah, I was wondering
if I
about
need
that.
to get out.
Yeah, yeah.
But they could have just. Is this the reason?
Or you're on.
If I may, once again.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. One of the discussions, again, this was 10 years ago, was that we could not have a Custom House address because all of the buildings that bordered on Custom House had either a Daniel Street address or Sheep Street address. And there really is no legal Custom House Court address or building with a Custom House Court address. That would be point number one. And so that was the decision-making, or part of the decision-making in 10 years ago. And the second thing I would point out is that in terms of the emergency light safety access, Sheep Street actually is two ways. And it's my opinion that the access to the building for life safety purposes, it is reasonable and adequate from Sheep Street. And in the worst case scenario, say you had a multiple fire, I'm sure they would run hoses down Custom House Court also. But again, 10 years ago, the discussion was that the primary pedestrian and light safety access would be from Sheep Street. Thank you.
All right, what are we going to do here?
Sheep Street door is the, hi, I'm over door.
Here's Sheep Street, right? So,
It's in the alleyway. Versus to come there, all you got is garage doors, and they live upstairs.
But they said that right around to the left of the garage door, on that wall, if you were to go, which you can't really see. If you
But you can't see it.
In other words, there's a man door on the side.
That's what, I haven't seen it, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
There's a man door,
Yeah, Sean, I think can speak to that. There's a man door at the end of the easement. Where's the door in the back, Jonathan? Is it at the end of the easement across
That's for
Karen White
construction.
Police's
Oh,
property?
construction fence.
Is it operable?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
The door that is at the end of the easement from Daniel Street across the Weeds property is a 36-inch door and is operable. I would like to point out that that area actually is used by Colby's Restaurant for an outdoor eating area and a storage area. In the case that we would continue with the designated Sheep Street 911 access, we have an easement and a dedicated ownership to keep that pathway clear. So I would not foresee turning to Daniel Street as a 911 address, because that really is quite cluttered. Historically, it's been quite cluttered. But in the case of Sheep Street, it would be a dedicated fee simple ownership in which that access
Site visit.
point would be kept clear at all times.
So, and I just, thank you. I just want to ask Pat one question. Did you, because, I mean, I did see that there are, a lot of them are addressed off Daniel Street. Is that something you would prefer if given that, is that the other option that you prefer? Is that it would be,
Well, it's the
it
que- I'm
would- could
sorry.
be addressed off Daniel Street? Is that what?
No, I
You would not, it would be custom house, okay.
no,
understood.
either Custom House or Chief.
You'd like to see a site visit prior to this?
I think a site visit would be
Okay.
best.
No, it is my opinion that the determination from 10 years ago was the best possible world for this location and this constellation of buildings. And my personal preference would be to stick with what they decided 10 years ago. Thank you.
So our deputy fire chief has asked for a site visit on this one to get a better understanding about the configuration of this area, and that's probably a good recommendation. Also, I think we need a little time to confer with staff about how we might, explain that to the planning board as a condition, because we've typically wanted to see as a condition of approval for the planning board that they get addresses and map block numbers. Well, I understand that. I think there's a new consideration now that there's a subdivision, so I think that I would need to explain to them, because we have really required that addresses be sort of squared away before, or at least before the building permit. So I think it'd be okay. I don't think it's a problem. It gives us a chance to kind of talk about that as a staff as well. So a site visit is what you're recommending.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
So it's postponed until the site visit.
Postponed a month, right, for the next TAC meeting? And this site visit is going to be,
So Pat, and I think I'd probably like to go on it.
Jamie,
Before the next time.
yeah, but you're not talking about TAC site walk, you're talking about deputy
Yep.
going to look at the site.
The deputy, and if planning staff is available, they can join as well.
I would,
with somebody who has access, so we can go and look at corridors and
you want
egress
to go
doors.
inside the building too?
Yeah, just the first floor and see the
Yeah.
egress and all that.
Are you going to be back in town? The owner's out of state, so. Oh, yeah, you,
We're going to be back November 8th.
November 8th, okay. You'll be back November 8th. Would it be possible to get this information determinatively given to us, so that at the next deadline, we know what to put on the plan?
Yes, we certainly can provide access and someone who knows the property well to assist in guiding if people are helping. Yes.
Okay.
set something up. that we
Should I
can-
set that up?
Yeah, let's set something up sooner than later, as soon as they're back in town.
Yeah, I can send you an email and copy with his email to set that up.
Could you copy Peter in case anyone on planning is able to join as well?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks.
Still on.
Save him, Peter.
I'm trying to find.
That's pretty mild.
All right. All right, the next item of business is the request of One Market Square LLC owner for property located at 1 Congress Street requesting site plan approval for the partial demolition expansion of the existing structure to construct a 3-story building with 58,780 square feet of gross floor area, 12,080 square feet building footprint, 13 parking spaces, and associated on-site and off-site improvements. Said property is shown on Assessor Map 117, Lot 14, and lies in the Character District 4, Character District 5, Downtown Overlay, and Historic Districts.
The next unbelievable act.
Good afternoon, John Shagnon, Ambit Engineering, representing the developer for the 1 Congress Street project. With me is Tracy Kozak, project architect, Mark Snab, developer, Terrence Parker, landscape architect. We could do a presentation. We did a TAC workshop. This is the first official TAC meeting on the project. We could go right to the comments, whatever you would like, Chairman.
What does everyone feel? Go straight to the comments, or?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, very good. So we did receive the comments yesterday, and there's sort of a couple of different areas of comments, some that deal with the actual plans and drafting and updating utility standards and things like that. There's parts of the comments that deal with the use of the adjacent streets and licenses and things of that nature. And then there's comments about the overall design. So I guess we'll just take them in order. The first one is that you would like us to identify all temporary licenses that will be needed for construction in the city right-of-way. And just to briefly answer that, we would expect that this project would require a CMMP plan. Mr. McNabb is prepared to talk about the plans for that. If you so desire to talk about that now, we'll leave that up to you as to whether you want that level of discussion at this point.
Before anybody else jumps in, I'd prefer we have an offline discussion with members of Public Works, talking about off-site improvements, right? Is that what you were just talking about?
The
Well, this is the
comment-
license. This is
License agreements in the right-of-way, city right-of-way.
The question,
On city
yeah.
property.
The question asks to identify all temporary licenses. So just, you know, a mile high, most of them will be CMMP. The only license agreements we see part of this regulatory process is the awnings on the building that will go over the sidewalk. That will be a license agreement request.
So, Mark, the fixed awnings, if there are any, would be a easement, not a license. We did that on Maplewood.
Okay, whatever the
Yeah.
current ilk is of the city easements or license, so it would be awnings. We're showing fixed awnings that are over the city sidewalk. If we do the catenary lights over the street, building to building, there'd be some form of easement or license for the catenary lights. Other than that, the street improvements, we don't see any licenses for any of that. The city's either going to approve it or not, and that's part of the process. In terms of CMMP, you know, for life safety, you know, we don't want to fool around in this street. We're proposing to do quite a bit of work. You know, we would propose to close High Street to do our underground utilities in High Street, our regrading, rip everything up, put our foundation, put our steel up, and keep it closed for that 3 or 4 months for that duration, and have flaggers and run traffic both ways down Ladd. We would not try to keep open half of High Street. That's CMMP, but I'm just using, because the question was asked, I just wanted to
it's important to keep pedestrians and keep cars, but it's also important for construction to push back if it's not safe. You can't build a building off a 4-foot sidewalk. So that's, unless anyone has any other questions on the licenses and easements, that's just a mile high on it.
I know that we do, you guys have to help me, I know that we do, when we have a CMMP and they're encumbering the sidewalk, we would have a sidewalk encumbrance license. Is that not correct, if they are using the sidewalk for staging? And so what happens when they use the street, or when they are
Same thing.
working in the street?
It's all city council, though. You can only do it for 30 days or less.
Okay.
So the sidewalk in the street would be a request under the CMMP for lengthy beyond 30 days, and that would all be a city council action.
So
It wouldn't be an easement plan because it's a temporary.
No, I understand that.
nature.
I understand it's just a temporary encumbrance. I think, Mark, I think what the guidance that we're getting from legal is that maybe it would be better advised to kind of get some of that lined up before approval, so that, because it is a component of the site plan, and there's quite a bit of work, it might be a conversation to sort of initiate with the council ahead of approval as a thought. So we can talk more about that offline, but that's
Happy to talk offline, but that's highly, highly irregular. That would be a CMMP, and I'd propose not to do that. I think that it's, I can understand it, but it's, we have, after we get approvals, the building's not even designed. We don't.
Understand.
Yeah, it would, so. John, why don't you go on?
Yep, okay, number 2, please be prepared to discuss construction details, maintenance plans, and any easements required for improvements proposed for adjacent city streets. So I think that the applicant has had a number of meetings on Zoom, on site, and tried to reach out and engage the city on this design of all the work in the city streets. And we want to work together with you. So we're prepared to do that. We can do it here at TAC if you want, and we could do it in another forum. But we're waiting for you to tell us the forum that you want us to bring forward all these public improvements that are really off-site, and then we can move that ball. So you can tell us what forum you want us to participate with you in. Does that make sense?
It does. And I don't know that I read all the Public Works comments. I think that what we'd like to understand, there's quite a few comments, and maybe it's covered by Public Works, is I think if there's any long-term maintenance plan for those improved sections of street. I don't know if Public Works had raised any question about that, but legal had asked if that was a concern for Public Works. So how those streets would be maintained long-term, and what the plan for, if there's any easements, aside from the ones that you've already identified, for those publicly improved areas.
How does the music hall do it?
Yeah, Chestnut Street.
Chestnut Street.
Don't we maintain
Once
that?
the $2 million of capital improvements were done, it's like a street, the city has it, right? So we would propose the same thing. We're doing an improvement to the specs and the plans of the city. We're just doing it much nicer than pavement. We'd propose, once we deliver that would be like Chestnut Street. Ones that are irregular, I don't mind if there's a lifetime maintenance, like catenary lights, from building to building. I think that's appropriate to treat that differently. Other than those, we're proposing on High Street to get rid of curbs, flush everything, like Chestnut. And of course, we'd build that and deliver that to the specs. So just like you'd be doing a road, and once the city accepted the road for meeting the standards, the city would accept that.
Mark, are you still considering Ladd Street or not?
We are, but here's my dilemma. We've tried all year trying to get feedback from the city. We can't.
We're going to get it for you.
And so the concern that I have is that I want to do all of it. But at some point, I have to move forward with none of it, because I can't get any response from the city manager. I can't get any response from staff. We've reached out all year. It started last January. with a Zoom staff meeting all online, no feedback. Then we had a walk with the planning board. The city staff was supposed to show, most of it canceled because legal kind of took over in a queer way. But nevertheless, then there was no feedback from that. Bob Sullivan said he would report to the city and would get back. I've emailed Karen Kennard to please give me direction, please ask, how can we do it? No response. So I'm assuming the city likes what we're trying to collaboratively do here, but I don't know that. Maybe they don't. And if they don't, then we'll just move forward. But if the city does, I need a way to more quickly get that done.
So Mark, Beverly can weigh in on this, but it seems to make sense to me, given I participated in both the site walk and that initial Zoom meeting, that the onus is on us to work with the city manager and perhaps set up a subcommittee of members that are here and other departments, and we'll get back to you and work with you to evaluate that question and do it in the next, at least meet in the next 30 days, or tell you we're not.
And I do appreciate, you declaring your intent, that it's our intent to do those improvements and that you maintain it, and the absence of further direction, that's, what we'll go with. And so I'll share that with the larger group and see if we can get something specific back to you.
My desire is to give a gift, to do these improvements. I won't get any more rent for my building with doing this $2 million offsite, but I desire to do it. So I just need direction if the city values it and wants it or not. We do propose, though, that to flush, there was a question in here about curbs, replacing curbs. We're proposing to flush mount all those curbs, like Chestnut, and give the demarcation, so you would have a brick looking, then a granite curb flush, and then a different paver in the street, so that you get a visual demarcation of them, but it all being flush.
Yeah, and just to make sure everybody's clear, I think your answer to the maintenance issue was we would do this like Chestnut Street, which we believe until somebody has provided different information, that the city is responsible for maintaining Chestnut Street after the initial outlay. So you are not proposing, other than the catenary lights or any incidentals, to do long-term maintenance. We would be responsible for the bricks and the serpentine area and all that.
It'd just be like handing over a street to the city. You build it to the specs. Once the city says you've done it to our specs,
we own it.
The city owns it.
I think the biggest obstacle that I saw, just preliminarily speaking, is the staircase.
Yeah, down to Fleet Street?
Yeah, because there's no place to put the snow. You can't shovel it because you can't throw it anywhere. And you can't do it with a machine, so it's going to be done by hand, whatever. So that's one thing that we kind of need to start thinking about.
Well, that's a different thing, Dave. I'm glad you brought that up. That's a different subject from where I'm concerned. I'm okay with clearing snow and doing all that in that whole area, including the stairs, because I own Haven Court, and I plan to shovel it, maintain it, take
Still
care
have to
of it.
put the snow somewhere.
Oh, I understand. We have quite an operation downtown of snow. We'd have to truck it out or hand shovel it and
Right, all the way down the staircase.
I understand.
Right.
Yeah, I understand. We either to do that or we have to close it in the winter. I think that I get the logistics.
The stairs.
Right, run some hydraulic heating through there or whatever.
That's really a tough one. It's amazing.
I'm not looking for an answer right now. You're looking for input. I gave you some input.
Yeah.
So we're working on it. We've asked for a panel to be formed as well.
So let's get people together. Okay, all right.
So we'll try to skip over some
Yes.
things. Please provide an updated average grade plane plan and average building height plan, supporting calculations. So,
You'll do it?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
It's good.
Advise me on that, and something we need to do.
please consider relocating 3 dumpsters on Haven Court or off of Haven Court. So those dumpsters are not Mr. McNabb's, but we agree with you. If we can find a better place to put them, that would be nice.
Boy, I'd love to. So Haven Court, we're cooperating with the new city attorney, and we believe that, we'll reach some amicable agreement on Haven Court. Haven Court has easements to the J.J. Newberry building for deliveries. Those dumpsters, I would never fight owning Haven Court, the prescriptive rights that J.J. Newberry has for having dumpsters there for decades and decades. So I don't know where they go. If anyone had any ideas, I know what I'd love to see happen when you have the largest parcel in the middle of downtown there being the city parking garage. I'd love to see something comprehensively in the city garage, but, like there's an enormous 3,000 square foot of signs and laydown area in there. I'd love to see some dumpster thing that can get managed and operated by private. But short of that, I don't know where.
Let's put that in our discussion about Haven.
So we're open to try to do that. I just don't know how to.
Good.
Get rid of the dumpsters.
I think 7 relates to 2 and 3.
Yep, I think 7 and 8 we can move right through, and then we go back to 1, and those are all things we'll work with the DPW on, all the construction details and standards and stuff. And I think
they all looked fine, by the way. All the
and
construction.
maybe a separate group with DPW to have a few meetings and work on those things.
Yeah, and just for the record on the dumpsters, they're on the city property, not Haven Court.
Correct.
Upper Haven Court.
Are they?
They're on Lower Haven Court.
Okay.
So it's something we got to address.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Thank you for correcting that. You're right. They are off Haven Court.
Yeah.
That's right.
Sorry, John. Go ahead.
That's fine, I'm glad you mentioned that. So, 24, handrail on stairs in alley must be ADA compliant. I don't know. Oh, that's the design of
Terrence's
that.
railing,
It's
I
got,
think.
not the building, that's the alleyway offsite. Gotcha.
The serpentine rail.
Yeah, the serpentine rail, okay. Now, when you say ADA compliant, that would be for not wheelchair, but sort of walking disability, so somebody can get a better grip going up the stairs.
Is that a requirement for a stair situation?
I think what we mean is it needs to meet the regulations regarding handrails. And we're not sure, because we're not building inspectors, whether that does. So it's something that we
I
have to
haven't
work
looked at it,
through.
but obviously height, graspability, right, those are all we're looking for, yeah.
It's going to move horizontally it's going to move more horizontally than vertically. So it would,
Because of the design.
yeah, so
Well, I don't think the code actually says that it has to be laser straight, right? It doesn't actually address that at all. So as long as it's the proper height and graspable.
And uninterrupted, right.
Uninterrupted, of course, yeah.
I think that's our intent, obviously. yeah.
That's the intent of the note, and we need to work through it, that's all.
Right.
We don't need to say anything else.
You straightened it, it would go all the way to
I have found over my building career that stairs and railings are one of the most important things there are in buildings. So it's the stairs construction and the railings are extraordinarily important. Fall hazards are very real issues.
And like Pat just mentioned as well, that I think it goes without saying that depending on the width of the stairs, you may need more than one, right?
You need one in the middle if it's right.
You got
So we'll be designing the stairs and railings to code.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah, there may be two.
I could see a linear rail on the wall if you could get an easement to lag at the wall. So someone that doesn't want to take an extra 30 minutes to get up following the
I did have a question on number 23.
Concerned about
Confirm
patrons
high
and
street
guests.
slopes will not exceed ADA. So everything that I graded there is less than 2%. I don't know if something stuck out.
Nope.
The area that was like, oh, geez,
No, I just didn't have a
double-check.
chance to
Yeah,
compute
okay.
all your cross slopes.
Okay, so it's just a.
I only had 6 hours to review the plans.
I got you. I'm fine.
Hey, before he jumped to 23, 24, number 7, where there's at least 5.5 feet of sidewalk behind Portsmouth-style lanterns. So if we have catenary lights, all that goes away, which is fabulous.
We need a plan.
If the cast iron lights stay, you don't have 5.5 feet on any of them.
Yeah.
So,
And option C is we do some sort of building mounted lantern, using the standard lantern, but it's on a bracket up above. All these things are open and available and things we need to discuss.
So then the last one I think we had here was, I was trying to understand what was being said, keep existing sidewalk and parking conditions in the high at Congress. Is that intended to be?
Oh, that's that front, on Congress Street in front of the bagel or the
Bump out?
Cool Jewels.
Yeah, parking is.
Where that
Right. We
landscape,
do not want to expand the bump out.
where the tree is.
In the Congress.
Yeah.
But do we all know that at least the plan we're presenting, we're proposing that the parallel spaces in High Street go away?
I think there's a loss.
Understood.
One space.
Yes, there
One
is.
space.
Yes, we understand that.
Because that's important to get the width of the sidewalks, and if we did that, everything falls in line. But right now, you can't have a travel way, parallel
It's
parking
that van
spaces.
space that we're talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
correct, in front.
Yeah,
Okay,
we're
okay.
moving the van space over, but we would lose one regular space, so you don't want to lose.
And we don't want to do that.
You don't want to do that, okay.
We're not interested in that.
Does everybody feel that way?
Given the bigger scheme of things,
Okay.
seems like a good one to give for now.
Okay. We'll dial that back.
Well, yeah, let me give it some thought.
Okay.
See if, on certain ones, I might ask on that item to have a vote to not recommend it to the planning board, and let me take it forward to the planning board and city council. And I can fully respect that an advisory board may not want to get rid of that parking space, but ultimately, that's the planning board and the city council. Right now, I'm 50-50 on it. You might sell me to just...
Mark, in 20 seconds or less, what's the primary objective of that one space being removed?
Well, the primary objective is, my own primary objective is that, I'd shut entire streets downtown.
Well,
And I
yeah.
really made parking. You can't eliminate enough parking for me on street.
Why that space?
Everything contributes to noise and chaos to me, with cars coming in, blind spots, pedestrians, and coexisting. Any space I could get rid of would be gone. We just favor the automobile too much everywhere. We're parking on both sides of the street. Cars back out. It's just total chaos. So where do I start? Well, I start at something other than zero. So I started at least in front of my property. I tried to get all the spaces eliminated from 3 Pleasant Street on mine, around the corner, all the way to 60 Penn Hollow. And I had some support on that, but then the city said they were hiring a planner to study Market Square in its entirety. And I didn't want to proceed forward with just my plan without looking at the whole thing. But I'm using this opportunity for TAC for understanding that I would like to calm Market Square down, and any spaces I could get rid of in Market Square, I support. And I'm using this forum to express that. Will I die on the sword on that space out front? No, I won't.
Yeah, we're taking the 5 off High Street, right?
That's a big deal.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
That's a big deal.
It's a good thing.
And that's a good thing. So thank you if you support that. I'll probably agree with you on the Congress one.
Okay. So you'll go back to HTC for the modifications. I think
are.
they can all be done administratively.
Yeah, we go back.
Oh, you filed?
Not tomorrow, but a week.
Did you file? Okay.
Yeah, we're already filed. So refilling the storefront in, and which I don't think.
Adding the
there'll be any-
pedestrian entrance on
all that's
Havenport.
we filed.
Yeah.
So I believe that the HDC is going to very much like us getting rid of cars pulling into the building. So I don't anticipate HDC trouble on that revision.
Any other ones that you wanted to tell us, or, potential bumps in the road, or?
let's get that meeting set up.
Yeah, I think the big ones are related to the public improvements, and we'll just we'll get some comments to you in advance, and some coordination with you in advance of the next TAC meeting. So I think that we can do that.
It'd be great. That'd be helpful. I'm committed to do it, though. I want to give the gift. I think it'll be neat. Make this like Chestnut Street.
Here, let me offer any public comment at this time. No. Let me check the Zoom. Just. All right, we don't have anyone on Zoom, so we'll close the public portion for this meeting. Any further discussion or
Motion to continue.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Yeah.
We're adjourned.